slammed my Porsche door open, pointed in my face, and shouted, "Whose car did you steal?" Little girl. He did not know I was 17. He did not know I was a straight-A student. And he definitely did not know my dad was the billionaire who owned the building behind him. And what happened next, the whole city would remember forever. He slammed the hood of my car with his flashlight and barked, "Whose car is this?" like I would just stolen it from the lot behind a high-security museum. I was reaching into my backpack to grab my id when he yanked the door wide open, the force nearly knocking my smoothie onto my lap. That was not even the worst part. The worst part was what he said next, loud, slow, and sharp enough to cut through me like a knife. "A little black girl like you do not belong in a Porsche." Right there, right in front of the Chick-fil-A drive-through, with people watching from the sidewalk. Some filming, and he did not even blink. Behind him stood another officer, taller, burlier, with a smug grin and mirrored sunglasses. His name tag read Officer Henley, but he did not say much. He did not have to. He stood like a wall, arms crossed, nodding like this was just another Tuesday. My skin was on fire, not from shame, from fury, from the kind of heat that rises up when someone dares to reduce you to your color and not your character. I am Melody Brooks, 17 years old, straight-A student at Crestmore Academy, one of the most elite prep schools on the East Coast, varsity debate team captain, youngest intern at Broxton Legal. Also, yes, daughter of one of the wealthiest black men in the country, but no one here knew that. And that is how I liked it. Until now, I was not used to confrontation. I did not like raising my voice. Most of the time, I kept my head down, studied harder than everyone else, and tried not to give anyone a reason. But today was not about a reason. It was about existence. Because, apparently, existing as a black girl in a luxury car was enough to be a suspect. I would just finished my uplit summer reading seminar and swung by for a grilled wrap. I parked legally. I was not speeding. I was not rude. The only thing I did wrong, if you asked Officer Kurt Melvin, was daring to breathe in a world he thought he owned. He snapped, "Step out of the vehicle." I hesitated. "Officer, I have not done anything." "Step out now." His hand hovered near his holster like it was a habit. My fingers trembled as I unclipped my seatbelt. People were staring. One woman whispered to her child and quickly ushered him away like I was a threat. My throat closed in, "You got Ed?" Registration. I reached into my bag. Slowly. Carefully. I knew the rules. I would been taught them since I was 5. Always narrate your movements. Don't talk back. Keep both hands visible. But no rule could prepare you for the humiliation of being questioned for something as small as eating lunch. I handed him my license. He looked at it like it was a forgery. "Melody Brooks." He read. "Suspicious. That your real name?" I blinked. "Yes, sir. Live in Fairmont Estates." "Ha. Yes, sir." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Damn. They let you all in there now." That is when the cameras came out. Someone across the street zoomed in on his badge number. A college kid behind me whispered into his phone, "This is going viral." He just straight up profiled her. Still, no one helped. No one stepped forward. Because in moments like this, silence is safer. I was ordered to place my hands on the hood while he ran my plates. My hands, brown and shaking, looked foreign on the smooth weight surface of the Porsche. I stared at my reflection in the windshield, my curls pinned back, my school blazer crisp and neat, and for the first time, I felt like I was watching someone else live my life. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not move. I remembered what my dad always said. Don T, let them break your dignity. That is how they win. What Officer Melvin did not know, what none of them knew, was that I was one text away from shifting the earth beneath his feet. Because my dad was not just a billionaire. He was Richard Brooks, founder of Brookstech, former Special Operations Commander, philanthropist, survivor, and the kind of man whose silence held more power than most people's words. I pulled out my phone and texted just 3 words. It is happening again. That is all it took. 5 minutes later, a black Rolls-Royce Ghost pulled up so quietly you would think it floated. The license plate read Brooks 1. The door opened. A foot stepped out in leather Oxfords, polished like obsidian. And then, there he was. My father. Richard Brooks. 54, 6'2", bald head gleaming under the sunlight. Gray tailored suit that looked like it cost more than the patrol car next to him. Calm. Controlled, and absolutely terrifying when he wanted to be. The crowd shifted. Murmurs rippled. Is that? No way. That is him. Officer Melvin turned. Eyes narrowing. Sir, this does not concern you. But Richard did not even look at him. He walked past. Walked straight to me, placed one hand gently on my shoulder, and said, loud enough for every camera and every person within earshot to hear, "This is my daughter." The sidewalk went silent, and in that silence, everything changed. I was not born into this life, not the life with private chefs, red carpet galas, or $1,000 blazers that my classmates wore like gym clothes. I was born into something smaller. Something invisible. My name is Melody Brooks. I am 17 years old, and I learned to be invisible before I even learned to write cursive. Before the mansions. Before the marble floors that echoed when you walked too quickly. Before Dad built Brookstech from an apartment with no air conditioning, I lived with my mom in a 1-bedroom studio in Westfield Heights, the wrong part of town. Back then, dinner meant a can of beans and prayers over electric bills. My father was a ghost then, a name I only heard on TV. A genius ex-soldier who invented processors that changed global warfare. We did not speak until I turned 10. That is when Mom died of breast cancer. And that is when my world turned upside down. Suddenly, I was thrust into a marble world. New house. New school. New family. But I did not belong. And I knew it. Crestmore Academy was beautiful in a cruel way. Ivory towers. Iron gates, and faces that only smiled when they pitied you. I was the only black girl in my chemistry class. The only one who did not have an equestrian trophy. The only one who did not know what foie gras tasted like. But I had grit, I had hunger, and I had Dad. Richard Brooks was not like the other billionaires on the Forbes list. He did not throw money at problems. He taught me to dismantle them, piece by piece, quietly, with precision. He raised me like a soldier, with Sunday lectures instead of bedtime stories. "Melody," he said once, "you do not need to shout. You need to know when silence is sharper than sound." Still, no matter how much he taught me to rise, the world kept trying to pull me back down, like last year, when Mims Pendleton accused me of plagiarizing my debate speech because she did not believe someone like me could quote Marcus Aurelius fluently, or the time Claire Monroe accidentally spilled her protein smoothie on my tablet before finals. I did not retaliate. I rose. Always rose. But today was different. Standing on that sidewalk, with Dad's hand resting protectively on my shoulder, I saw Officer Melvin hesitate. Just slightly. He did not know who Richard was yet, but he knew power when it stood in front of him. "Sir," he said again. Posture stiffening. "I am in the middle of a traffic investigation." Richard's voice was calm, razor sharp. "No. You are in the middle of a public embarrassment." That hit harder than any yell. "I suggest you stop speaking." Dad added, his eyes like polished granite. "You are digging faster than you know." Melvin glanced around. The crowd had grown. At least 20 people now, phones held high. Recording. Documenting. A few whispers. "Wait, that is Richard Brooks. No joke. The billionaire. Girls, his daughter. Oh, damn." Melvin Saddam's apple bobbed, like he would swallowed fire. Still, he tried. He turned to me, as, "Brooks, do you have proof of ownership of this vehicle?" I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the papers registered in my name. Dad always insisted I learn accountability. Melvin scanned them, then handed them back wordlessly. "But the damage was already done. You humiliated her," Dad said, not raising his voice. "You presumed theft based on skin. You escalated an interaction with zero probable cause. You publicly degraded a minor. And you did all of this on camera." Melvin tried to speak. "It was just protocol." "Protocol," Dad cut in, "does not include violating the dignity of a child. You forgot one thing. Officer, you are not above the law, and neither am I, but I own the law firms that defend it." Silence. A heavy silence. And then, the second officer, Henley, took a subtle step back. He wanted no part of this anymore. Dad turned to me. "Are you all right, Melody?" I nodded, but my jaw was tight. I was tired of nodding. "Can we go home?" I asked. He looked at me for a moment, his daughter, with tear-stained cheeks but unbroken posture, and then turned to Melvin. "We will let the courts finish this conversation." With that, he took my hand and led me back to the Rolls-Royce. As we drove away, I looked out the window. The Chick-fil-A bag sat beside me, cold and unopened. I was not hungry anymore. I was burning. "Quietly burning, Dad?" I asked, still watching the sidewalk disappear. "Do they ever stop?" He did not answer right away. Then, no. But eventually, We stopped letting them win. I exhaled, and in that moment, I decided this was not going to be one more silent incident. I was going to speak, loud enough for every girl like me. Loud enough that they would never be silenced again. His name was Officer Kurt Melvin, age 38, height 6'3", a towering figure in a creased blue uniform, faded from sun but still starched with authority. Square jaw, blonde buzz cut, pale skin with a scar above his brow, like a symbol he wore with pride. What people remembered most about him was not his look. It was the smirk, that little twitch of the mouth, smug and practiced, that appeared every time he made someone feel small. In this town, Kurt Melvin was not just a cop. He was the cop, the one they called when someone did not look like they belonged, the one who'd been awarded Officer of the Year twice, both times after high-profile arrests that turned out to be mistaken identity. But nobody questioned him, because Kurt had two things going for him: a badge and a brother-in-law on the city council. That was power. Not the kind built on respect, but on immunity. And that was exactly why he never expected anyone to fight back. After we drove away from the scene, it only took 30 minutes for the first video to go viral. 48,000 views, then 100,000. By midnight, the words Melody Brooks were trending alongside #Porsche Girl and #Profiling Gachik Fela. By sunrise, it had been picked up by 3 news outlets. Not because I was important, but because Dad was. I wanted to disappear, but Officer Melvin, he doubled down. That same morning, he held a press conference outside the precinct. Cameras rolled as he stood tall, chin raised, voice firm. The actions taken yesterday, he declared, were in accordance with department protocols designed to ensure public safety. There was no racial bias. There was no misconduct. And then came the dagger. Miss Brooks' reaction is unfortunate, but it is not uncommon for individuals to exploit interactions with law enforcement for social media attention. He called me an attention seeker. He spun my fear into performance. And worse, some believed him. The comments online turned dark. If she did not want attention, why was she driving a $200K car? Bet her daddy paid people to film it. She is lucky that officer did not arrest her on the spot. Spoiled brat. It felt like drowning in a pool I did not even step into. But the moment that crushed me came during lunch break at school. Claire Monroe, the queen bee of Crestmore Platinum Blonde. Legacy student, born with a trust fund and an attitude, walked past my table, giggled, and tossed this over her shoulder. Must be nice to get famous for being a victim. Maybe I should scream next time someone checks my parking pass. My hands clenched under the table. I stared down at my tray turkey sandwich. Untouched, the world saw a Porsche and a billionaire's daughter, but all I felt was naked. Later that night, I asked Dad, why does it always turn into a circus? He sat beside me on the couch, glasses low on his nose, reviewing a business proposal. Because truth is heavy, he said, and liars are better jugglers. Then he added, but this time, we do not walk away. He was not joking. The next morning, I found myself dressed in a navy pantsuit tailored, pressed, like armor, and standing beside him at our own press conference. A dozen microphones in our faces. Reporters yelling my name. But I was not afraid. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "They will try to twist your words, so choose them like a blade." I stepped forward, looked straight into the nearest camera. "My name is Melody Brooks. I was profiled. I was humiliated. Not because I broke a law, but because I looked like someone who would. I did not ask to go viral. I asked to be treated with dignity. And if my story helps the next girl be believed sooner than I was, then maybe this embarrassment was worth it." Silence. Then applause. Later that night, Dad showed me the emails. Hundreds. Thousands. From young girls. From parents. From former cops. Some cried. Some raged. All of them shared one thing: a need to be heard. But not everyone was clapping. Officer Melvin filed a defamation notice the next day. That is when Dad picked up the phone and said to his assistant, "Activate the legal team. I want every camera ready. We are not just defending Melody. We are making an example. And I, Melody Brooks, 17, once invisible, was about to take on a man who thought a badge made him untouchable. It started with a knock on our front gate, not a loud one. Just the kind of knock that comes with a clipboard, a fake smile, and a legal trap wrapped in polite language. Dad did not even blink when the man in the beige suit handed him a thick envelope labeled Melvin V. Brooks et al. He flipped through it once, gave a little scoff, and handed it off to his lawyer, Gregory Chu. I was sitting on the grand staircase when I heard him say it calm. "Like always. He wants a fight. Fine. Let us bring fire." Dad had always been the storm behind the silence. He never yelled. Never threatened. But when Richard Brooks moved, he moved like a chess master 3 steps ahead. Quiet. And lethal. And now, because Officer Kurt Melvin wanted to drag my name through court to save his badge and bruised ego, Dad was done playing polite. The next morning, Gregory gathered the legal team in the sunroom. Ivy League degrees. Gray suits. Voices like smooth knives. "Here's the play." Gregory said, "We do not settle. We do not apologize. We expose everything. His record, his complaints, his body cam inconsistencies, and Melody." He looked right at me. "We are putting you on the stand." My heart skipped. I am not. I have never. "Doesn't he matter?" Dad said. "You have already lived it. Now you just tell it." And just like that, I became the center of a civil rights lawsuit against the city's most notorious cop. The courtroom looked nothing like the ones on TV. No drama music, just fluorescent lights, rows of oak benches, and the hollow silence that only justice can demand. Officer Melvin sat across from us, flanked by his union lawyer and a few tight-jawed officers who refused to meet my eyes. He did not smirk today. He wore a full suit, no badge, but his energy had not changed. It still reeked of entitlement. When it was my turn to testify, the air felt thick. I walked up in my navy blazer fitted just right, my hair braided neatly, chin lifted like Dad taught me. And then I told the story, from beginning to end. I told them how he slammed my hood, how he smirked when he said, "A little black girl like you," how his partner just stood there, how I kept my hands visible, my voice low, my spirit small because I was scared. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice, but my hands trembled slightly when I looked into the jury's eyes and asked, "Would you have stopped me if I were white?" The courtroom was still, like God was listening. Melvin's lawyer tried to paint me as a privileged kid, using race to dodge responsibility. He pointed out my Porsche, my last name, the press conference. "You have resources," he said. "How can you claim victimhood?" I looked at him, then the judge, and I answered, "Resources do not erase racism. They just let you survive it a little longer." That quote made the New York Times the next morning. But the true twist had not come yet, because while the trial was unfolding, Dad's team had been working in silence. And the day before closing arguments, Gregory stood before the court and said, "Your Honor, we would like to submit new evidence." Security footage from a gas station across the street. Different angle. Clear audio. And in that grainy recording, you could hear it. Officer Melvin, muttering under his breath, "Another rich monkey with daddy's money. I will teach her what street looks like." A gasp, a real, collective gasp from the room. Even the judge froze for a beat. Melvin's lawyer turned pale. The jury sat up. I stared at the screen, at the version of me I did not even know had been caught from afar, standing still. Breathing carefully, trying not to cry. It was not just about me anymore. That night, when we got home, Dad did not pour champagne. He did not even smile. He just sat beside me on the patio, the city skyline behind us. "You did good," he said. "I did not win yet." I replied, "No." He said, "But you changed the rules." And I realized something then. This was not about a car, a cop, or a courtroom. This was about visibility. About the right to be seen not as a threat, not as a symbol, but as a human. Tomorrow, the verdict would come. But tonight, I finally felt something close to peace. The courtroom was quiet. Too quiet. Even the ticking wall clock sounded like a hammer against stone. I sat beside my father, my palms sweating against the soft leather of the bench. Gregory Chu leaned slightly forward, his face unreadable, his pen frozen mid-scribble. On the other side, Officer Kurt Melvin stared straight ahead. Lips pursed, jaw clenched. No smirk. Not today. The bailiff entered. "All rise." The jury filed in, 12 strangers holding the weight of a nation's wound in their hands. The forewoman stood, a white woman in her early 40s, lips pressed thin, eyes resolute. She cleared her throat. "In the matter of Melvin v. Brooks et al., we, the jury, find in favor of the defendant Melody Brooks." My knees buckled. A single breath escaped my lungs like air from a balloon. Around me, gasps and whispers ignited the stillness. Dad did not move, just placed a steadying hand on my back. Gregory smiled, tight-lipped and knowing. The judge nodded. Additionally, we find that Officer Kurt Melvin engaged in discriminatory conduct, misuse of authority, and violations of civil rights. Damages in the amount of $2.7 million are to be paid by the department. It was done. Justice, at least in the eyes of the law, had been served. But justice in the streets, That is a different story. By the time we exited the courthouse, protesters had gathered. Half were cheering, holding signs that read "Protect Black Youth" and "Dignity" over badges. But others, louder, angrier, waved American flags and shouted words I won, repeat. One man spat near my feet and yelled, "Another spoiled brat who hates cops." I flinched. Dad did not. TV crews shoved cameras in our faces. Melody, what would you say to Officer Melvin right now? Do you think this verdict changes systemic racism? Was this about justice or power? My mouth opened, then closed, because I did not have an answer yet. That night, I scrolled through the news. Ken, Fox, Twitter, TikTok. They all told different stories. To some, I was a hero. To others, a villain, a puppet, a symbol, a brat, a warrior, an opportunist. And the scariest part, none of them saw me. Claire Monroe posted on her private Instagram. So she wins a trial and suddenly she is Harriet Tubman. Girl, please. My inbox filled with threats and praise. You are an inspiration. One said, "Hope you crash your car next time." Said another. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the ceiling, willing the world to slow down. And then Dad knocked. He stepped in without a word, handed me a box. Inside was a photo of him young, maybe my age, dressed in his army fatigues, kneeling next to a child in Iraq. On the back, in his handwriting, was one sentence. They spit at me too. Before they asked me to save them, I blinked hard. What now? I asked. We keep going. He said, we build. We speak. We stand. And when they shout, we whisper louder. The next morning, I made a choice. I posted a video. Just me. No makeup. No editing. No press team. My name is Melody Brooks. And I am not perfect. I am not a hashtag. I am not a symbol. I am a girl who wanted to eat lunch and ended up fighting for my humanity. I did not do it to be famous. I did it so the next girl one have to. The video hit 2 million views by sunset. A week later, a national teen magazine asked me to speak at their youth empowerment gala. I was on stage, under soft lights, 1,000 students in the audience. When I said, "You do not need a billion-dollar last name to demand respect. You just need the courage to believe you deserve it." They stood, every single one of them. But even then, I knew this was not the end. Officer Melvin filed an appeal. Protesters still marched. Some teachers looked at me differently now, like I was radioactive, but I did not shrink. 'Cause I would seen what happened when you stood still. Now it was my turn to move forward. The spotlight had a strange weight to it. It did not press on your shoulders, it burrowed beneath your skin. After the verdict, after the speeches and the viral video, after the media dubbed me the girl who sued the badge, I was not just Melody Brooks anymore. I was an idea. A headline. A movement. I woke up to emails from journalists, invitations to sit on panels, calls from networks asking if I would be open to a documentary deal. My school counselor forwarded a message from Yale asking if I would consider early admission with a social justice scholarship. People I would never spoken to in class now waved at me with careful smiles. Some called me brave. some whispered troublemaker behind their iPads. But not once did anyone ask if I was okay. Because the truth was, some nights I was not. I missed being anonymous. I missed walking through the mall without being recognized. I missed sitting on the bleachers eating frozen grapes without someone asking me how it felt to be a symbol of the resistance. I missed me. One Friday afternoon, I skipped my last period and walked to the bleachers alone. The field was empty, wind curling through my braids. I sat and let the world spin without me for a while. Then a voice called out, "Didn't think freedom fighters played." Hooky, it was Jalen. Jalen Tate. 18. Black. Crestmore's only other full-ride student. His quiet brilliance, sharp jawline. Soft laugh, always with a notebook half filled with lyrics he never showed anyone. We were not close, but we were not strangers either. He sat beside me, tossing his bag down. "Thought you would be in New York by now. TED Talk or something." I shrugged. "Not today." He was silent for a while. Then, "You do not look like you are winning." That hit harder than I expected. "I am tired." "Jalen," I admitted. "Everyone thinks I am some warrior. But all I wanted that day was a chicken wrap. I did not ask for this." "You did not ask," he said. "But you answered, and you did it loud." I smiled at that, a tired smile, but real. Then he asked, "Would you go back, if you could, take it all away?" I thought about that, about erasing the trial. The cameras. The chaos, about staying silent. Invisible. Safe. "No," I said finally, "because if I went back, that cop would still be laughing, and I would still be scared of driving with the windows down." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe this version of you is who you were always meant to be." I did not reply, but something in me settled. Still, the cost was rising. That night, Dad got a call. A brick had been thrown through the window of our downtown office. Spray paint scrawled across the lobby wall, "Brooks = traitor." The next day, someone leaked our home address online. We had to increase security. I was pulled from school for a week for safety. I could not even walk my dog without a bodyguard trailing me like a shadow. I cried in the hallway bathroom. Once. Just once. Then I looked in the mirror and wiped my tears away, because crying does not stop people from painting targets on your back. Courage does. At home, Dad saw the look on my face. He did not ask questions, just handed me a folder. "What is this?" I asked. "A choice." He said, "You can step back. Disappear. I will protect you. Or you can own it." Inside was a proposal. A youth-led initiative, the Melody Project, backed by Dad's foundation. Legal support, mental health counseling, advocacy training for teens who experience discrimination. "This is not about fame," he said. "This is about giving other kids a shield, so they do not have to fight alone." My hands trembled as I held it. "Do you really think I can lead this?" I whispered. "I know you can," he said, "but you have to want to." That night, I opened my laptop, built the website, recorded the first video. "My name is Melody Brooks," I said, "and if you have ever felt small, silenced, or scared, this space is for you." By dawn, the project had 15,000 signups. A week later, we received our first grant. But I knew the spotlight that once crushed me would now be my stage. And this time, I was not running from it. The day the mayor called me a divider, my face was on every news channel in the country. Not for winning a trial, not for building a platform that helped over 20,000 teens report racial incidents in their schools, not for creating a hotline that connected victims with pro bono lawyers and therapists. No. That morning, I woke up to see Mayor Paul Whitaker. Silver-haired, camera perfect, standing at a podium with a rehearsed frown and a teleprompter glowing like truth behind his eyes. "We commend young people for civic engagement," he said, pausing for dramatic effect. But when advocacy turns into antagonism, when one student becomes the face of finger-pointing and chaos, we must ask, are we healing, or are we burning bridges? He did not say my name. He did not have to. The headlines did it for him. Teen activist accused of dividing city. Mayor warns of extremism in youth-led movement. Melody Brooks sparks controversy with the Melody Project. My inbox exploded. Sponsors froze their funding. Several schools pulled out of our program. A popular local radio host called me a teenage Al Sharpton with better lighting. And worst of all, kids started messaging me, asking if the hotline was still safe. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. How do they twist something so good into something dangerous? I asked Dad that night. He did not answer immediately. He was pacing, tense in a way I had not seen in years. Because power protects power, he said. And when you threaten the order even with the truth, they will come for your name, your voice, your soul. I blinked. So what do I do? Apologize. Quit. He stopped, turned, his voice calm, but the kind of calm you get right before a storm everything. You ask yourself, is this who you are? If it is, then you stand. But it was not that simple anymore. That weekend, I was scheduled to speak at a high school across town, mostly kids of color, most of whom had faced the same profiling I did. The school board voted 5-2 to cancel my appearance. Too controversial, they said. Too political. I watched the live recording of the meeting. One board member, a white man with a thin smile, said, "We can allow our students to be emotionally manipulated by this girl's personal crusade." This girl. I was not a child anymore. I was not even a student in their eyes. I was a threat. That night, I almost shut it all down. I stood in my room, staring at the corkboard, filled with letters and drawings from the kids we would help. One in pink crayon said, "Thank you for making me feel brave." And below it, I told my principal what my teacher said. She said sorry. First time ever, I dropped into my chair and cried, but not like before. This time it was not from weakness. It was from knowing how close they would come to extinguishing my fire. Then, I made a decision. The next day, I posted another video. This time, I did not read from a script. My name is Melody Brooks. I am 17. I like mango smoothies and late-night sci-fi books and overthinking what shoes to wear. I did not choose this fight. I answered it because someone thought the way I looked made me criminal. And when I stood up, I was called a hero, then a threat, then a divider. But I am none of those things. I am a girl who refused to be quiet. And if that is controversial, then maybe silence is more dangerous than noise. It hit 1 million views in under 4 hours. But that was not the miracle. The miracle came at 7 p.m. when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it, and standing on the steps were dozens of students from schools all over the city, holding posters, wearing T-shirts that read, "I am Melody." They did not say much. They did not need to. One girl stepped forward and whispered, "We got your back." Don T let them silence us. And for the first time in weeks, I felt my voice steady again. Later that night, the backlash against the mayor began. A leaked audio recording revealed that the city had planned to quietly defund several diversity programs in public schools until the Melody Project had brought attention to the issue. The mayor's healing speech had been damage control. He was the one dividing, not me. But I did not gloat, because this was not about revenge. It was about resistance. The invitation came wrapped in gold foil and arrogance. Mayor Paul Whitaker invites Miss Melody Brooks to appear in a special televised town hall on civic unity and youth activism, hosted by State Channel 7. I read it twice. Then again, Dad leaned over my shoulder and let out a slow breath. "They are not inviting you to speak," he muttered. "They are inviting you to fail, to be contained." He was right. A fancy stage, live cameras, a citywide broadcast labeled as unity, but designed to frame me as the out-of-control teenage spark plug setting the town on fire. I almost said no, but the image of that pink crayon drawing on my bedroom wall, the one that said "thank you for making me feel brave," clawed its way into my chest. I would not let them erase me, not with lights, not with applause, not with scripted words. So I said yes. The night of the town hall, the studio lights were so bright they blurred faces into outlines. The audience was a curated mix, half city officials and donors, half students and community members, all handpicked to manufacture balance. The moderators were polished. The seating was symbolic, the mayor at center, me to his left. The narrative was clear: a veteran leader, a loud child. Let the battle begin. The cameras rolled. Mayor Whitaker opened with practiced empathy. "We are here not to shame, but to understand, to heal, to listen." Then he turned to me. "Melody," he said, voice dipped in honey, "you have become a very public figure. But do you understand the burden that comes with that spotlight? Do you take responsibility for the unrest your project has unintentionally caused?" The trap was obvious. Blame cloaked as a question. I straightened in my chair, adjusted the mic, and smiled not sweetly, but steadily. "I understand the weight of responsibility, sir. That is why I created a platform for kids who've never had one. That is why we built safe spaces in schools. That is why we exposed buried complaints, discriminatory policies, and unfair treatment." He shifted in his seat. "You have made bold claims," he said, "and those claims have consequences. Protest, division, fear. Do you believe the path to unity includes painting public servants as villains?" I inhaled once, then answered respectfully, "Mayor Whitaker, the path to unity begins with truth. And the truth is this: when a girl like me is pulled from her car, humiliated in public, and nearly branded as a criminal for driving while black, and the system responds by questioning her, rather than the one with the badge, we are not divided because of protest. We are divided because of silence. The room stilled. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. I continued. If unity means quiet obedience, then no, I do not want it. If unity means ignoring pain to maintain comfort, then no, I want to support it. But if unity means accountability, if it means equity, if it means safety for all of us, then I will fight for it every day of my life. Scattered applause rose, but not from his side. Mayor Whitaker smiled, tight and political. Well, he said, we thank Melody for her passion, but passion must be paired with wisdom. I did not flinch. Then let me show you some wisdom. I pulled out a folder, laid it on the table. Dozens of complaints from students. Emails. Reports your office ignored. Principals who silenced kids to avoid headlines. All documented. All real. All happening under your watch. The audience gasped. A few stood to look closer. The moderators froze. And just so no one says I fabricated, this entire file was sent to your office last spring, with no reply. A full second of silence. Then the moderator cut to commercial. But it was too late. By the end of the broadcast, the internet exploded. #MelodySpeaks trended worldwide. The file was leaked. Journalists dug up past complaints buried under red tape. City officials scrambled to distance themselves. And 3 days later, Mayor Whitaker announced his resignation, citing health reasons. He never said my name again, but the city did. Kids wore Truth is Louder shirts in the hallways. Schools unblocked the Melody Project website. Our hotline tripled in calls overnight. That weekend, we held our first youth justice rally. Over 10,000 students showed up. I stood on stage, holding the mic with both hands, not trembling. Not hiding. My name is Melody Brooks. I said. They tried to make me quiet. Instead, I became louder, and the crowd roared. I used to think power looked like a crown, but now I know it looks like an inbox with 10,000 unread messages, eyes that forget how to cry, and a voice that everyone listens to, except when it is whispering, I am tired. After the mayor's resignation, everything exploded. National magazines called me the face of Gen Z justice. A Netflix producer sent us a pitch for a documentary. Senator Avery invited me to speak at Capitol Hill. Invitations flooded in from Harvard, Princeton, even the United Nations. I was 17, barely a senior in high school, and I had to hire a communications director. A bodyguard followed me between classes. My phone was monitored for threats. And in all of that noise, I started losing pieces of myself. It began quietly. Lunches where I sat alone, because my old friends did not know how to talk to me anymore. Study groups that felt like interviews. Birthday parties I was not invited to, not because they hated me, but because I was not Melody anymore. I was Melody Brooks' trademark. The girl with the mic. The girl who won against the city. The girl who made everything complicated. Even at school, teachers paused before calling on me, unsure if a lesson might become political. Some classmates looked at me with awe. Others with resentment. Claire Monroe walked past me in the hall one day and said with that sugar-dripping voice, "Congrats on saving the world. Let us know when you are done so we can get back to prom planning." I laughed. Out loud, but it sounded hollow. Because what no one tells you is when you become a symbol, you stop being a teenager. At home. Dad noticed. Of course he did. One night, I walked into the kitchen at midnight and found him sitting alone, staring into a mug of cold coffee. He did not even look up when he said, "You have not drawn in weeks." That stopped me. Drawing, my first love. Sketchbooks under my bed filled with doodles. Charcoal portraits. Imaginary cities. My safe place. But I had not touched a pencil in over 2 months. I sat across from him. "I do not have time," I said, staring at the counter. "No," he replied gently. "You do not have silence." And that hit deeper than any headline. He reached under the table, slid over a box. Inside was a new sketch pad, a set of graphite pencils, and a note. "The world is loud, but your soul still whispers." That night, I drew until sunrise. No cameras. No hashtags. Just lines. Shadows. Stories that needed no translation. And for the first time in weeks, I felt human. But the world did not pause. A week later, I was honored at the State Youth Humanitarian Gala. I wore a gold dress that made me feel like sunlight. Jalen escorted me in a black tuxedo and silver lapel pin that said "Dream Loud." For once, the applause felt warm. Not political. After the ceremony, he and I walked outside, away from the red carpet and flashing bulbs. We sat on the curb. Legs crossed, stars blinking above us like silent witnesses. "You miss being normal?" he asked. I did not answer. He did not push. Then he said, "You are not alone. You know, you make us feel less alone." I turned to him. "But what if I do not know who I am anymore?" He smiled. "Then start there. And let us help you build her." The next day, I announced something unexpected. A month-long pause. No speeches. No panels. No appearances. Just rest. The media spun it a dozen ways. Burnout. Breakdown. Brand reset. But for me, it was resurrection. I went back to school. Really went. Sat in the courtyard, laughed with Jalen, cried during Romeo and Juliet, sketched during free periods. I wrote thank you notes to kids who messaged me, visited local art classes, relearned how to just be. And slowly, the noise faded enough to hear something softer. Myself, not the symbol, not the hero. Just melody. And she was still standing. 1 year later, I stood on the stage of Crestmore Academy as graduation ceremony, looking out at a sea of mortarboards. Beaming families, and a skyline glowing gold beneath the setting sun. The podium was warm beneath my fingers. The wind tugged gently at the corners of my honor cords. And as I opened my mouth to speak, I realized this moment, this very breath, was something I had once thought I would never earn. They had tried to bury me in noise, drown me in headlines, mold me into something palatable, or destroy me when I did not fit. But here I was, whole, free. unapologetically Melody. My name is Melody Brooks. I began, voice even and clear, and for a while, I thought I had to scream to be heard. I thought justice required fire. Maybe, in the beginning, it did. But what I have learned this past year is that healing takes something much quieter. Something stronger. I paused, letting the silence bloom. Then continued. We are more than our worst day. We are more than what the news says. More than what they expect. We are builders. Bridges. Thunder beneath calm. And we were never meant to whisper. Behind me, Principal Hafford, who had once told me gently to stay quiet, during assembly was wiping away a tear. After the ceremony, I walked past rows of families, hugs and flowers and photo flashes. Claire Monroe nodded to me from afar. A small, respectful nod. Not a friendship, but an understanding. Even that felt like growth. Jalen found me near the fountain. He handed me a single white rose and said, "Ready to change the world again." I grinned, not alone this time. That fall, I enrolled at Howard University, majoring in political science and media studies, not for fame, but for function, for knowledge, for a deeper fire. The Melody Project had grown into a national initiative, operating in 12 states, with hundreds of teen ambassadors leading safe space sessions, policy discussions, and campus justice reforms. But I no longer had to be the face of it. I became its mentor, its guide. And that is what true leadership is, not being in every photo, but lifting others into the frame. Every Sunday, I still sketch, still draw the city skyline. But now, I always add one thing: a girl in the corner, holding a mic, not shouting, not crying, just speaking, calm, brave, unafraid. Because sometimes the most radical thing a black girl can do is exist loudly. People still ask me, was it worth it? And I always say, yes. Because now, when a little girl is pulled over in a nice car, maybe the first question won't be, is this yours? Maybe it will be, how did you get here? What is your story? What can I learn from you? That is the world I am building, not just with speeches, but with truth, with courage, with all of us. So if you are listening, if you have ever been silenced, dismissed, or told to stay in your place, don't stay there. Stand, speak, build. Because sometimes the world does not change with a scream. Sometimes it changes with a girl who simply refuses to be quiet anymore. And that was my story, a story that began with a lunch break and a luxury car, and became a journey through humiliation, courage, resistance, and truth. A story about how a 17-year-old black girl, Melody Brooks, was mocked, profiled, and publicly shamed, simply for existing where they thought I did not belong. But I did not run. I did not stay quiet. I stood, and in standing, I found my voice, and in speaking, I found my purpose. Because the truth is, the world will always try to put us in boxes, based on our color, our age, our gender, our income, our silence. But boxes are for storage, not for people. When they told me to sit down, I stood taller. When they told me to calm down, I spoke louder. And when they tried to break me, I learned to bend into light. Power does not come from privilege. It comes from choosing not to shrink. Justice does not arrive on its own. It is demanded, defended, and lived. And sometimes, the strongest revolution begins with the smallest voice saying, "I deserve better." So if you have ever been underestimated, mislabeled, or made to feel invisible, this story is for you. You matter, your voice matters, and your silence is not the price of peace. If this story moved you, do not just watch, do not just feel. Hit subscribe for more powerful true life dramas like this. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, your stories, your truth, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded. They were never meant to whisper. They were always meant to be heard. See you in the next story.